Good afternoon, everybody. Time for another edition of Lead Better, live edition right now here for the 22nd of September. And Mikey, is he AWOL? Is he MIA? I guess he had permission, sort of, but we were happy to have Sierra Holland come in and take his place. And then, we'll see if we decide to let him back. How are you, Sierra?
I'm doing well, and quite the intro. I know I'm missing Mikey on this as well.
Yeah, well, he's on official admired leadership business, so maybe he'll make an appearance later in the week. But I'm excited that you're here. We'll have some other guests later in the week. And in today's field note, that is the purpose of Lead Better, it's kind of fun because it says, let's eliminate the bureaucracy together. Let's eliminate the bureaucracy together. And that's now you and me. So you and I together, we're going to figure this all out. We're going to have no more bureaucracy for anybody in the future. And I think this is fantastic. Now, I'm going to say I have my own feelings about this. I have a little bit of my own experience with this, but we have an admired leadership. We have our leadership side, and we have our strategic and our communication and organizational side. And you kind of live in that space more than I do. And so I am guessing that you have seen way more problems with bureaucracy than I have.
And I've seen a lot of leaders trying to figure it out for themselves and team members complaining about it. I mean, I can't analyze a survey feedback that we get without getting the question of how can we make these processes happen faster? Yeah. So it comes up everywhere.
Let me ask you that. So when you say when you're getting survey feedback, you're actually looking for this.
Sometimes it depends on what the context of the survey is, but I feel like in pretty much any survey where there's an open-ended box, you'll get some random inputs in there, and sometimes it's a process that needs to change. It might be, an open-ended question that says, is there anything that you want leadership to know, or is there anything that we can do to support you? And sometimes the question that comes back is, hey, this process, whatever that process may be, is taking us 2 weeks, and I need it to be shortened to 2 days. And then the best part is if you can then go in, figure out how to change that process with folks, just like the field note said today.
Well, I'm guessing, and the field note, by the way, has, I think, a pretty good approach to how to kind of solve for some of this, and particularly for our purposes. How should leaders look at this, and what should leaders be doing, and how they interact with their teams to kind of achieve a better outcome? But my first question would be, I don't think that organizations and leaders kind of set out to say, you know what we need? We just really need more bureaucracy. If only we could have more and more layers of stuff. Nobody seems to desire that, and yet it happens. So how does that happen?
Yeah, I think in so many places it comes from just growth. We're growing, we add a process because we need consistency, or, we have something specialized, we need a specific process or a specific set of approvals, sometimes that come out of, a real big misstep or a big mistake, or, we didn't cross-check this enough times, let's put a process in place. I feel like many of them are put in place for good reasons or for good intentions. But what the challenge then becomes is leaders need to be on the lookout for bureaucracy every time, every day. Every organization is trying to move faster, work more efficiently. The first thing they should be looking for is, where do we have bureaucratic processes that we could simplify?
Yeah. I was driving my youngest to school the other day, and there's a school that we pass before we get to her school, and but also similar to her age group. So there's like middle schoolers and that. We sometimes kind of are looking at what are the kids wearing, and I see a kid on a bike, and he's got on a big heavy backpack, as kids sometimes do, and then he also has another backpack on the front of him, and he's kind of like wobbling down, and I'm like, this isn't going to go well. Like he is so top heavy with this stuff, and you would say it's ridiculous. Why would you send your kid to school wearing two giant backpacks? But yet that's kind of what we're doing to our teams. We're layering them with things that kind of just make them wobble, and they're just trying to get down the road on their bike. I don't know then if the issue is, as you said, leaders are looking out for it, but the point of this field note is they're not always good at seeing it.
Because they're not living it necessarily day to day. You get more brought up an extra level, and you're letting your team kind of move through the processes and drive things down. And maybe you're the one saying, where are we with this process? Or have you made progress, working with procurement on this? And they're saying, I'm working with them. And you're wondering to yourself, it's taking an awfully long amount of time. And sometimes you don't ask the question directly of like, where's the holdup? Is it us? Is it them? Is it just, and often the response that we get is, well, that's just how things are. Every time I do this, it tends to take this amount of time. And what's challenging about identifying and really replacing bureaucracy is you do need buy-in at certain levels of what can be in scope in terms of simplifying and what is really beyond our control.
Yeah. Well, as we would often say at CRA Admired Leadership, conversation, communication is usually the way out of most kind of problems if we just simply kind of give our attention and time to it. And so in this place where we're kind of encouraging leaders in this field note to say, you may have a lens, you may have you're like, this doesn't seem to be, this is too slow over here. But just ask the team. They're the ones out there. What is slowing you down? Where are the redundancies? And that seems like such a simple step. And yet I'm guessing you see plenty of organizations where the leaders have just never asked that question.
And I think that might be the case, but sometimes it's the question that's the problem. In the field,
Or the way it's asked?
Exactly. Yeah. The question has to be specific and defined, just like the field note said. Saying, what's slowing you down? It's a good question. Someone should be asking it. But an even better version of that question might be, what is slowing our contracting process down as much as it is? Or what would we need to do in order to shorten our process from 10 days to 2 days? And that really gets people engaged in a specific question about a specific process. Because otherwise, they might be thinking, oh, could I take meetings off the calendar, or more of the small pieces that they actually can control? You need to give them permission to look bigger and look at the processes that are slowing us down. Often, we could do like a system thinking type of exercise with folks. System thinking is to look not at the problem, but at the system that has created the problem, and really get to know that system very well. What are all of the moving parts of it? And then where is the actual challenge in that process? Getting as specific as you can with the question that you actually want your team to respond to is the perfect first step. If we go too broad, they might bring up things that we can't address, and then it sounds like we're not taking their feedback very seriously. So I would say almost a pre-question to ask yourself as a leader is, what do I have control over? And what do I actually want feedback on? Is it one process? Is it many processes? I need to have clarity on that as a leader before I go forward. Otherwise, my team might feel like their answers are falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, if you're asking a question and the answer is, well, it just feels sluggish. Sluggish is not something we can really work with that well. It's like, okay. But when you get it more defined, great. Now, the field note brings up this example, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was Amazon ran through something like this with certain pieces of their vast organization. And like right away, they got feedback from teams of about 1,500 things that could just be eliminated or reworked or relooked at. And they got to work on them and got hundreds of them kind of in process right away. And so part of it is not only just getting a specific definition, but then it's actually following up and taking action on it. Because if your team says, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, and they don't see the leader or the organization doing anything about it, they're not likely to bring up more problems in the future. Whereas it seems like the Amazon model was, let's just take the action and simplify this. And that ability to not only say, ask the question, but be prepared to take action would seem to be a really important next step.
And be careful not to let your action-taking process become bureaucratic in and of itself.
In and of itself, right, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have that team that's identified to actually take action on all of these recommendations, there needs to be a clear process for making that not slow. Because 1,500, how are we going to comb through it? How are we going to prioritize it? There are decisions you can make ahead of time that makes that decision-making process down the line even simpler and faster. Do we want to prioritize the ones that we're getting the most noise about, or the ones that are going to touch the most of our teams? Is it something that is going to be revenue tied? Is it something that it has to be something tied to revenue generating activity in our organization for us to take action on it? That'll help us sift through. You have to figure out what is the filter that you want to use when you're going through these questions. And that will help you move even quicker. Maybe you don't have everybody, go through all the questions together. Maybe it's then divided up into tag team, just 2-person groups that are there to really set out to solve a problem that works and create that solution that lands for folks.
Yeah, magic. Now, I don't know if I can attribute this to whatever Amazon just did, but I had an Amazon encounter last night, and I actually just thought of it while we were talking about what Amazon had done. I was coming out I have a gym in a building that's detached from our main house, and I was coming back toward the house, and there was an Amazon truck out in front of the house, and the woman kind of got out of the truck, and she was kind of flagging at me, and I thought she just wanted me to come out and grab the package, which I'm happy to do, but she said, "This package is leaking." Well, that's not a good sign. And I said, "Set it on the ground, step away. It's radioactive." No, I didn't say it. And so I was trying to think, what did I order that could be leaking? And so she said, if you want, you can have the package, and maybe it's okay or something. But she said, if you want to skip the step of having to return it, like go online and do the return and have somebody, I can just take this back into my truck and put it in as damaged, and they'll send you another one tomorrow. And I was like, that's really wonderful. Now, I thought she was being really nice to me, and she probably is. I have a feeling that it's in some Amazon process that it costs them more money if I actually have to go in and submit some return thing. And you know how oftentimes on an Amazon thing, they're like, just keep it. Like it's cheaper for them to send you the new one. Or sometimes an organization will say, donate that one if it was the wrong size, right? Just the return process is not worth it. And so I was like,
stocking fees.
But they had to empower her to have that ability to say, here's a package. She didn't know what the value of that package was. It might have been $20. It might have been $200. She didn't know. She said, I can just put this in as damaged, save you the step, and we'll send you another one. Great. Perfect, right? That's actually, I wondered that where it went in the process, where somebody heard from enough drivers that they're like, oh, this is the way that we're going to do it, and we're going to give the drivers the power and the capacity. And that's kind of an important thing, that as a leader who's looking to reduce all of these things of drag on the organization, you have to trust what you're hearing from the team, but then you also have to trust and empower them to take action to make those things happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of organizations right now are saying, we want interacting with us to feel as simple and easy as Amazon. There's a reason. They've figured it out. But I wanted to push on that one idea that you just brought up of how do you get the voices in the room to be able to really share their ideas freely. Something that I thought was insightful about the field note was being open and transparent about the responses that you got. One way that we sometimes do this with clients when we're looking to, maybe it's change a culture, but in some places it is, how do we simplify? We often do discussion threads. So most organizations have Slack, or they might have Microsoft Teams or another, social media like way to interact within the organization. And it's fairly simple and completely free to put up one clear discussion question. You have to make sure that the organization or the right team is ready to jump in and respond. And you have to have some level of, engagement from leadership in that discussion thread, but just saying, what's slowing us down, or how could we improve our annual budget planning process, and just put it out to the organization. Anyone can comment, anyone can reply to each other's comments. You can see which ones get the most likes and which ones people are actually volunteering to help to fix and to problem solve. People, once they've thrown out the problem, often that's a quick way to say, you seem really passionate about this. Let's sign you up for our Tiger team. We want you to be one of the people that's really figuring out the solution to this. And it gets them more bought in creating the solution because they're the ones that raised their hand for it in the first place. So having that discussion thread, it's much like engaging on social media that most people are familiar with, whether you're a commenter or you're just somebody who likes to like other people's comments. It's a really simple way that any leader can engage their team. And I've seen it work from small teams of a couple hundred to a couple thousand. And it's really fast. You just have to have a great way of, organizing and analyzing the comments that do come through.
Tiger team. I didn't even know that was a name for some of these things, but I like that sound. That's good. It sounds active and action oriented. So 2 quick points to get your thoughts on as we wrap up. But one of them is built around the idea that the field note kind of gets to toward the end, that, yeah, the idea is not just to wipe something out for no reason. It's probably was there for a reason, that you need to have a better solution or an alternative before you kill the other thing, right? So
That's right.
have a direction that says, we understand why this fence was built or this wall was built, and we respect the people that made that decision 20 years ago. We've thought this through, and here's what we're going to do differently. And then with that, also keeping in mind, I think it was in Nassim Taleb's book, Anti-Fragile, where he talked about the fact that redundancies in organizations are there for reasons too. And that if you wipe out too much, you can actually risk fragility. Like you can actually create some things where there's no slack in the system. So that's a thing to keep in mind too, the balance of making sure that there are some things that might feel like a little bit of drag, but actually mean that you're not going to have a total disaster. So I guess the main thing here, though, is don't just wipe something out without having a much better answer. And that seems to feel right to me. I don't know how you see it.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself a few questions. Did we unintentionally make it worse? Are there second order consequences that we need to get ahead of? And did we train people enough on the new way of doing things? Often, truly a more elegant solution comes through, but we haven't trained people effectively enough. We haven't actually shown them how to do the new process. So, you have to ask yourself those questions. Am I unintentionally making it worse? Have I trained people enough on the new process? And have enough people from enough different parts of the organization tested it out before we feel confident it's a better solution?
Yeah. Well, and I think we often have quotes that pop up in field notes and of all kinds, and I think this is probably one of the ones that best fits the content. It ends with the quote from Lawrence Peter, and I double checked it: "Bureaucracy defends the status quo long past the time when the quo has lost its status," and that kind of sums it up.
Well put.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Let's do this again tomorrow, okay?
Yep. I'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody.